Hi, buddy. It's Jeff Allen here. So I got my ongoing Halloween voice I keep joking about in all these different videos because it's 13th of November and my Halloween voice hasn't gone away because I had bronchitis and COVID. The COVID's over, but the kind of the results of the bronchitis haven't got away. We're trying to get some medicine that does it beyond the natural stuff we tried, but we'll deal with it. So sorry for the coughing here and there, but I gotta get the video out, or I'm gonna forget the ideas, or I'll have such a backlog on to get them done. So, this video is specifically going to be about what I want to. I'm not going to be a long one because I've actually got a lot of other videos that I'm going to point to, and so I'm gonna. This is going to be maybe an introductory. I think this will be an introductory chapter to a couple of several of my books actually. Video books or series, whatever we call these things, but. What I want to address here in this shorter video is value systems, competing, competing national country value systems that are competing. Let's call them nations or cultures or countries. They have all competing value systems, and sometimes you call these worldview. Okay, and this reminds me of after my linguistics training, or during my language, after my language, during my initial linguistics training, after I have a language degree, I took a course at the Society for Summer Institute for Linguistics, the French version, Society for International Linguistics. But there was a course on worldview. Actually, in my first bachelor's degree, I took a course on ethics too, and I think that was key. Ethical values can differ. There are some things that it seem like they're the same, but it depends on the country and where things, right? Ethical values are kind of it fits along with this. So ethics, I think, is a really careful code because ethics, you don't always, everybody says honesty, but honesty doesn't always mean the same thing, depending on the country. Transparency doesn't always mean the same thing, depending on the country and how you approach it, right? It's not always exactly the same thing. We say something, but it's not. And sometimes we act and behave differently depending on transparency and honesty and all that. Second, so the thing with my other was the worldview thing was the course on worldview that I took at the SIL Summer Institute of Linguistics in Eugene, Oregon, 1990. We were dealing with. It was funny that they had us do a lot of role playing, skits and role playing, on how we would deal with bribery situations at a border when you had to, come in and get access with a visa, or maybe bring things with you, right? Would you pay the bribe or not at the border? And that rose a lot of interesting debates because you got to deal with this question, right? And I've dealt with this later on when I had to bring 3 computers to Haiti. I had all my documentation. They were owned by the company I was working for, but I had Haitian colleagues with me, and I spoke Haitian Creole, but I had native Haitian colleagues with me, came with me, and they got me through without having to pay any things, right? So I had to deal with it. But my colleagues got me through, and they're being paid, right? So, for the project. But do you pay that or not? Do you pay that? And is it a bribe? Is it a fine? Is it a tax? What do you want to call it? There are a lot of ethical questions in this. And I think this is, again, it comes back to ethics too. But I don't want to focus only on that when I talk. I want to put to the several other books these video books. I made a series of books on working with the French, working with the Germans, working with the Americans, or understanding where the Americans, working with the Chinese, working with the Indians from India, working with the Africans. I'll have to separate that into different groups of Africans because, North Africa is way different than lots of the bigger part of Africa, right? So, and then and working with the Caribbeans, spent most of my career doing that in different ways. And those are all different cultures too, but different islands and stuff. But there are a lot of similar traits, and so I try to deal with the similar traits when I have these 2 videos. I don't try to deal with all the differences, but at least the similar traits you can see that are repetitive and have many multiple currents and very repetitive traits. But the thing I think is really important is to see that in having worked, and I've worked in a lot of international projects. I probably that's one of the key things that allowed me to be working in industry and stuff was the fact that I can speak English natively. That was an advantage, but also that I speak a lot of other languages. That helped a lot. And I have a lot of experience in project and program management that people didn't have. And that allowed me to work on a lot of projects, international projects. And the multilingual thing really helped a lot too. So, um, my meal ticket to surviving in industry. But I think that the thing here was I've been doing a lot of the videos to explain different value systems, to explain um, that probably 95% of everything I've seen in the past 35 to 40 years. I've worked not just in industry, but working actually in academia too, with people from different cultures. I've spent my entire career, and actually before my career, my grand my father and my grandparents and my great grandparents all lived in countries other than their home countries. So, or they grew up in countries that were not their nationality, right? So I mean, this always came up multiple times, and so there are different value systems, and I spent all of my career working with people of different cultures and doing all kinds of outsourcing and stuff, and working really display stuff and all kinds of really different, and I think the key thing is the value systems, and this comes back to the worldview. Conflicts. There always be conflicts. People always hope to not have conflicts, right? And I've seen this in like meetings where you have big meetings, you have big workshops, and you bring them together and they say, hey, what would you do for this company? What is the thing you want to do? We'd like to get rid of it. And everybody says politics, right? Politics, which is conflicts, right? And I say, no, the politics will always exist. You just learn how to deal with it. That's how governments do, right? But I said, I would like to just have a better email system that works, that makes my life easier, productive. They all kind of laugh, but the politics is always there. It's how you deal with it. And this is the key when you politics isn't a funny thing, and this really fits into this whole thing of worldviews and all that is. And I made it some talks to at the Society for Automotive Engineering Top Tech in 1999 in Amsterdam, December. I talked about this, the horizontal axes of relationships. I talked about 3 different types of relationships. And I re-mentioned this again, talked about it in my University of Gdańsk talk in Poland in October of 2014. Those are the 2 talks I've mentioned, these horizontal axes. And what's really key, I think there's the first axis. I don't want to talk about all of them because you can go watch the videos to get more details. But the fact that it's like a slider or a fader, right? Plus or minus. And on one end of the spectrum, the minus or the plus, whichever you want to call it, you've got when you collaborate and share, that's one thing. And if you don't collaborate and share, it's called hoarding information for yourself. Retaining, hoarding stuff for yourself, withholding. And both are necessary and appropriate at certain times, but it depends on how much you do it, right? How frequent it is, and how well known you are for that, doing that or not, and whether or not people want to work with you. So I found that I hoard certain things like my patents, which I'm supposed to do because that's legally what I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to talk about my patents until they're published, right? Which can take a long time. But I try to collaborate and share with everything I can collaborate and share because that brings a lot of people who want to work with me, which is great because it's kind of boring to work by yourself all the time and never have any people that you want to work with you, right? Because you're a person that hoards stuff and doesn't share. But when you collaborate and share, people want to work with you. And that's what allows me to have a huge network of LinkedIn people and 2,000, 10,000 contacts because I share. I share what I can share. And so this all fits into the worldview. Some countries, some cultures do sharing is okay. Some are not. Sometimes it's good to hoard. I mean, this is just these 2 points are really key to looking at. There's so many different value systems, and I've seen that the majority of conflicts and the non-resolution of conflict, the non-resolute conflict is usually due to people not seeing their differences of their value systems. The non-resolution. So ongoing conflict is due to people not being able to see different perspectives of a conflict and accept that the others are not wrong. They're just it's a different worldview that they grew up with, and they can't psychologically, you know, dislodge from or to disavow. And and when each of them standing their ground and doesn't want to try to compromise, that leads to ongoing conflict, and that's worldviews. Sometimes, and this is really tough sometimes. And I really want to shout out to all the people that worked in conflict management, resolution, mediators. You got it even goes in the couples, right? There are a lot of couples have to sometimes go see people to help them in their marriages because there's conflicts. You always have conflicts. You always have different points of view, and so it's really I want to shout out to the people that work in this because it's really tough because you got to find ways to help people to compromise, work together, reconciliation. This is tough stuff. And it's because of the different world systems which are normal. We've got these differences. It's kind of a normal, accepted thing. And that points to all the thing like conformity-based culture and all my other videos on that. And I got lots of videos about these topics, but I'm trying to keep them all separate as much as possible. It's easier to watch them individually and to see a little picture afterwards rather than doing a long 10-hour video, right, of a single book. It doesn't work that way. Nobody would watch it. So that's it on my thing on worldviews and value systems that are different and how to deal with the fact that we got, negotiation of, these different views that lead to conflict and how you resolve it's the key.